Many people may be on the border as to whether or not global warming is a serious issue caused by humans.
Since the 1880s, the average temperature around the world has risen by 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
For the first time in 650,000 years, CO2 levels have reached over 300 parts per million.
CO2, carbon dioxide, is a greenhouse gas that plays a major role in global warming. When CO2 is emitted into our atmosphere from burning things like fossil fuels, it traps some of Earth's heat. It lets the sun's light in, but doesn't let all of Earth's heat out. According to Stephen Schneider, editor of the Climatic Change Journal, the dramatic increase in global temperature will cause drought and floods. The intense heat will also allow for a large amount of precipitation and melting of the polar ice caps.
Since 2007, some of the worst floods in history have occurred, including those caused by Hurricane Katrina.
We are here to tell you that is in fact an issue that must be stopped.
A major point opposing global warming is that only land-based temperature data stations show a global warming trend. There are many flaws with data collected from land-based stations because of interfering sources of heat such as urban cities. Data of the relationship between the atmosphere's temperature and carbon dioxide levels suggests that as temperature increases, CO2 follows. This would imply that more CO2 does not cause the temperature of the planet to rise. There is also evidence of natural causes for the heating of the planet. Scientists have advanced theories that the increase in temperature during the 1980s and 1990s could easily be due to solar eruptions, tidal activity, and other natural events. In the next 20 years, the sea is expected to rise approximately 8 feet. Since 1850, the polar ice caps have melted by 40%.
These melting ice caps can also contribute to the CO2 in the atmosphere. This is because as the ice melts, it releases CO2 that was trapped within.
Since 1990, yearly CO2 production has increased by 6 billion tons. A 20% increase connected mostly to human activities. 20% of the CO2 humans release into the atmosphere comes from the cutting down of forests. This is not only an issue because we are producing such high amounts of CO2, but because the process of deforestation destroys the very things capable of transforming CO2 into breathable oxygen. According to the U.S. Global Change Research Program report, global warming will decrease the quality of our air and allow for smog to form more easily. As the air quality worsens, it will affect human health. Smog causes irritation of the lungs, asthma attacks, and can be associated to premature deaths.
I'm David Doniger. I'm Policy Director for the Climate and Clean Air Program of the Natural Resources Defense Council in Washington, and I've been here twice over my career. I've been here. I came to NRDC in 1978 and left in '93 to go work for the Clinton administration. And then in 2001, I returned to NRDC, and I've worked on climate change much of that time.
Oh, okay.
And I got my law degree from the University of California at Berkeley, and my undergraduate degree from Yale.
Do you believe that global warming is an issue, and why?
Well, I do. It's not really a matter of belief. The scientific data, scientific information that we have shows us there's a very serious problem already apparent, and it's going to get much worse. From having too much carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping pollutants accumulate in the atmosphere, way above the natural background levels, and as those levels go up, the temperature rises, and many other well documented adverse changes start to occur, and we are now seeing heat waves and storms and many other bad impacts starting to manifest themselves from the added heat trapping pollution that's already in the air, and every year we add more. So I believe it's an extremely well documented scientific proposition, and that we need to be taking steps both to reduce the emissions and to get ready for the stuff that's in the pipeline that we just can't. As we add this tremendous amount of carbon pollution to the atmosphere, we're changing the balance of the heat budget of the Earth. How much of that heat that used to escape into outer space is now trapped by these gases like a blanket, because they have this capacity to absorb infrared radiation. All this is extremely well documented scientifically, and the principal reason that the climate is changing is that humans, by burning fossil fuels, by putting some of these industrial chemicals into the atmosphere, by cutting down forests, we're changing the chemical composition of the atmosphere and having much more of this heat-trapping pollution in the air.
If you could get one message out to everyone about global warming, what would it be?
Well, it would be that if we don't act, this problem will get worse and worse. And it'll be a real, when you're my age, you will look back and say, what were they thinking back then? How could they have let this just go on? On the other hand, if we do act, we can't avoid everything that's in the pipeline already. We can't stop things that are already here. But we can keep that, avoid that huge worsening of the problem. The world would be a much better place when you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 40 plus years from now when you're my age. And that's a choice we have to make now. And just pretending this is not real, denying the science, is profoundly irresponsible to our kids and to our grandkids. And if you want the rest of the world to, this is a problem. We have one global atmosphere. So we need cooperation from the rest of the world. Well, most of the rest of the world is actually more ready to act than we are. Yet the U.S. is such a big part of the world scene. If we shoulder our part of the task, then you get cooperation even from China, even from India, all around the world. And we can solve this problem. Now, you may see over my shoulder a poster. You surely can't read it, but it's about the ozone layer, which is threatened by chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons. And reached a global agreement involving every country in the world, from China to South Sudan. Everyone is a part of this treaty, and everyone has phased out the CFCs. And the ozone layer stopped getting worse, and it's actually getting better. And this is going to make a huge difference. It's going to avoid literally tens of millions of skin cancer deaths that would have occurred around the world if we just let that problem go. So I know we can solve these kinds of problems. And every now and then somebody says, what about that ozone problem? Nothing happened. Well, the reason nothing happened is that everybody acted. And those chemicals are gone. So we know how to solve these problems, and I'm not sure that's one message, but my message is basically, it's really bad if we don't just do anything, but there's hope, because if we do act, we can keep the world from going down that bad path and make it a much better place.